Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to MST.TV. This is Nishi here, bringing you all another Market Watch episode this week. So last Market Watch, we focused solely on the megatins and what we can do to prep for those, and we just had the rarities all revealed to us this morning. But in today's Market Watch, however, this is going to be more like a regular Market Watch where we observe some trends based on the meta and cards that are being hyped up at the moment. Some cards are going to be due to future support that we will be getting later on, whereas other cards will be things that are currently trending in the OCG that we might see brought over here to the TCG as well. Let's get started. First up, let's take a look at Flame Spirit Ignis, which is a rare card from back in Light of Destruction. This card has a pretty simple effect where you can tribute a fire monster on the field to burn your opponent for 100 damage times the number of fire monsters in your graveyard. Apparently, this card isn't a once per turn effect, and because of that, we've actually seen it pop up with a new FTK that takes advantage of this card and the fact that the effects of Bear, Tiger King, and Dragon are not hard once per turn effects, on top of the fact that they are free when you have Eagle on the board. Now, it is a really long combo and it is fairly easy to disrupt. I don't think that the combo has a way to play around Nibiru, so it probably isn't going to have too much of an impact at a large event or anything. However, it is a cute combo that can take you out if you don't have any form of interaction like a hand trap. Now, because this card only has the one printing and that printing is quite old, we've actually seen Flame Spirit Ignis almost completely bought out. There's a few copies posted up by Core TCG for about $4 each, but after that, you're looking at almost $20 a piece for this card on TCG Player. Obviously, I think someone just bought out a bunch of the cheap copies, and the fact that the $4 copies have been up for a while and haven't been bought yet means that no one is really looking for this card. People just kind of bought it for the hype and are hoping that they'll be able to move it at a slightly higher price. Definitely a card for you guys to dig out of your bulk and sell for whatever you can get. Next up, let's take a look at Artifact Lancia, specifically the secret rare version from Battles of Legend Heroes Revenge. So in the OCG, Artifact Lancia is currently a really strong card, seeing play in a lot of side decks and in some cases even moving into the main deck. It's very strong against the Invoked engine, as once the Alistair is in the graveyard, you can force your opponent to make a poor fusion choice using monsters from their hand, or you can prevent Invocation from resolving altogether. It's also useful if you shotgun it early when they have Maximus, since they can no longer summon it onto the board and force you to dump cards from your extra deck. In the OCG, this card is even better because Orcust is a top tier deck still, with Harp Horror at 1. However, I think that this card does have potential in the TCG here as well, as Lancia can also be effective against Eldritch to stop your opponent from banishing cards from their graveyard during the end phase, and could also be situationally useful against Adamancipators by preventing them from summoning out Block Dragon or Gigantes. This card has a few common printings as well as an ultra rare print from Dual Devastator. However, I definitely would be paying attention to the secret rares as the highest, nicest looking rarity. They're only around $2 each at the moment, but if this card becomes a very popular side deck card here as the meta shapes up, I could easily see it becoming a $5 version of the card. At the very least, I would have your playsets of the ultra rares as the lower rarity holo version readily available. Another card that is apparently seeing play in the OCG is Mistake. This is a pretty significant floodgate type card that is apparently seeing play in the OCG, largely because of how prevalent the Dogmatica engine is, and I could definitely see that being true here in the TCG as well. Mistake stops your opponent from resolving Nadir Servant or Ecclesia, and can also be used to stop cards like Magical Meltdown, Alistair, Cursed Eldland, or Block Dragon from searching cards out of the deck. It's certainly another very strong side deck card against the Dogmatica Invoke deck, maybe not as strong against the other top decks of the format at the moment. However, it's definitely a card that I would be on the lookout for, as if we start to see the Dogmatica engine splashed into more and more decks, the card just becomes that much stronger. The card is still quite affordable, with printings as a gold rare and a common from the Sacred Beast structure deck, but of course if you're looking for something that will probably skyrocket in value in the future, you should be looking at the original Secret Rare First Edition copies from Shadow Specters. There are several unlimited versions available, but for the first eds you're looking at paying around $4 each at the moment, which isn't too bad. I think that on release this card was about $20 or so, and it wouldn't surprise me to see this card hit $10 to $12 if it were to see an increase in play as a side deck staple. Mistake is a card that I would definitely make sure that you're holding onto a playset of as a solid side deck option. Another trap card here, Ice Dragon's Prison, is a card that is brand new out of Rise of the Duelist that, in my opinion, has kind of flown under the radar, as it's just an ultra rare, unlike some of the other chase cards from the set in Nadir Servant, Forbidden Droplet, and Triple Tactics Talent. This is a card that can be very useful when going first, allowing you to summon a monster from your opponent's graveyard, and then potentially allowing you to banish a monster from both players' fields that have the same type. This card is pretty insane since you can steal a key combo piece out of their graveyard, preventing them from doing anything with it, and then you can follow that up by using it as a combo piece during your next turn. Alternatively, if your opponent is playing a deck that contains multiple monsters of the same type, you can banish both monsters and interrupt your opponent mid-combo with a non-targeting banish. Very versatile card, but I think that with all the emphasis that we've seen on hand traps and impermanence and droplet, this card has kind of fallen under the radar. However, I think it's really underrated and is something that you guys should be looking to pick up your copies of sooner rather than later. I know that some people are looking at Shaddoll Schism as the ultra rare to stock up on out of Rise of the Duelist, but for me, my investment of choice would absolutely be Ice Dragon's Prison as one of the most versatile forms of interruption that you can run. I definitely think that it's going to see a ton of play in side decks moving forward, maybe even main decks in decks like Subterra Numeron or Altergeist that play a lot of traps in the main deck anyways, and I think it definitely has the potential to be a $15 to $20 card in the future if it sees as much play as I think it will. Next, let's take a look at Fabled Subaru. This is kind of an odd card. It's a level 2 Beast Tuner monster that special summons itself if it's discarded to the graveyard. Very simple effect. I think that the idea here is that it might potentially be useful in the Tri-Brigade deck. As a tuner, it could help go into Needle Fiber, and then in the graveyard you can banish it as a link material for the effect of a Tri-Brigade monster. Honestly, this card could be good, or it could not be, I really don't know. The thing is, we don't have any established Tri-Brigade deck lists as of yet from the OCG. I think that the decks that we have seen that have utilized the Tri-Brigades thus far have all been Zodiac strategies which don't make use of this card at all. I guess the card was bought out preemptively, maybe by people theory crafting with the deck, as the secret rares from Hidden Arsenal are up at $7 each, and of course the DT super rares are $9 each with very few quantities available on TCG Player at the moment. This isn't something that I would be spending very much money on at all, especially when we don't even know for sure just how good the deck is going to be, so I would recommend moving your high rarity copies of this card immediately if you can. Remember, this card does have a couple of common printings from relatively recent structure decks, so if you really need to use this card in your deck, you should always be able to pick up some commons quite easily. So a surprising top tier deck out of the OCG is actually Zodiacs, which have kind of emerged out of nowhere despite I think Trident and Barrage still being at 1, and Broadbull also still being banned. The deck makes use of a ton of hand traps to provide constant disruption, in addition to the other cards you play like Called by the Grave and Triple Tactics Talent, and Trident having that pop during your opponent's turn, and of course, Max C being at 3 over there can be a huge balancing factor in certain matchups. A big reason for the deck's resurgence, however, is the release of Negalogia AA Zeus, a boss monster in the OCG that you can bring out by putting it on top of an Xyz monster that battled this turn. This is extremely easy to bring out in Zodiacs because of Borbo, which can simply attack your opponent directly. You can then use Zeus's effect to detach 2 materials from it and send all other cards on the field to the graveyard, which can obviously be really devastating. Now, I've noticed a lot of people looking around for Zodiac cards recently, and I feel like this is definitely a big part of the reason why. I remember when Zodiacs were like the top tier deck, and a lot of people really didn't like them, and now they've kind of regressed back to being like a hipster deck choice. Anyways, Chakanine is probably the most difficult piece of the engine to get your hands on, as it only has the one printing out of Maximum Crisis, as it wasn't reprinted in the Megatins from that year. The card is around $9 to $10 right now, so it's definitely something to keep your eye on. I could definitely see it continuing to trend upwards as people get more and more hyped up about the deck after seeing how the deck has performed in the OCG. However, I would still be a bit cautious as we don't get Phantom Rage released in the TCG until November, and we do have Maximum Gold coming out in October, so that might be the perfect opportunity for Konami to reprint both Trident and Chakanine. This one is kind of up to you guys and how you want to play it. The safest bet would be, of course, to sell the card now, but if you're set on playing the deck, you can hold on to the 2 or 3 copies you want to use in your deck just in case. So next up, we are on to Levier the Sea Dragon. This is a buyout that we probably should have seen coming quite a while ago, but we've seen a pretty significant increase in the price of Ultimate Rare First Edition Leviers, which are now up at $60 each. The Ulti Unlimiteds are still relatively affordable, down at around $25 each or so, but it's not like there's a ton of copies available at the moment, and we should expect those to go up in price as well fairly soon. This is a very important rank 3 monster with the upcoming Phantom Knight support that will be coming out in Phantom Rage later this year, as the deck makes a lot of rank 3 monsters very easily, and Levier can be used to summon back boots or gloves that is banished so that you can use it as an Xyz or a Link material once again. I actually was holding onto a few Leviers that I picked up about a year ago when they were $10 to $15 each, because the card is not only beautiful as an ultimate rare, but it's a free combo extender and fits very well along the trend that we've seen with combo decks and whatnot recently. Now, I know that Phantom Knights are actually pretty good with the new support, but I don't think that they will be top tier as long as Rusty Bardiche is still banned, and hopefully that card stays banned. It is pretty busted. I think Levier is one of those older ultimate rares that's going to stay expensive, so I wouldn't feel like you need to rush to sell or buy them right away if you want them. I feel like they've just kind of been bumped up to whatever their new market price is, and they're gonna stay pretty flat here moving forward. Just keep in mind that there are lots of lower rarity versions available, including a common and super rare tin promo version, so the card itself should be definitely easily accessible. So probably the most hyped stuff to come out of Battles of Legend Armageddon, at least in terms of how they would impact the meta, was the Numeron stuff, Numeron Network, Numeron Calling, and the Numeron Gate monsters. Now early on, I think people were looking for around $20 or so for a single copy of Numeron Network, maybe even a little bit higher than that. And I remember back then, I told you all to hold off on buying your Numeron engine because I felt like the engine just wasn't that good and wasn't gonna hold up in the meta. And fortunately for myself, that has proven to be true. With cards like Impermanence and Forbidden Droplet running around everywhere, it's really difficult to actually resolve the effect of Utopix Exile. I feel like it always gets negated before you can use it. That's not to say that your opponent will always have the answer for it, but if you're going to be playing a large event, you can't depend on it with everyone naturally main decking outs to the card. So as a result, the Numeron cards have tanked massively in price, and Numeron Network is currently down at around $5 each, and Numeron Calling is literally a $1 card right now. Probably feels really bad if you actually paid a chunk of cash for them. Personally, I did pick them up a little bit early still. I paid around $10 each for the networks and then $2 each for the callings. Not the worst thing in the world, but I definitely could have picked them up for cheaper, so that kind of sucks for myself. But mine are German copies and I plan on keeping them, so that's fine with me. Anyways, now you are actually able to pick up the entire engine for just around $20 or so. I think that at this price, it's probably not a bad idea to pick up the engine just in case. If we start to see a format where Impermanence and Droplet kind of fall out of the meta for whatever reason, this engine could definitely become relevant once again. And when you can pick up the entire package for only $20 or so, which is what some people were paying before for a single copy of Network, it becomes a relatively low risk investment that actually does have a lot of potential upside. So yeah, hopefully you all listened when I told you to avoid picking up the cards too early on, because if you did, you saved a pretty big chunk of change on an engine that has a lot of potential, but definitely isn't top tier at the moment. Alright guys, that is it for today's Market Watch episode. We are almost done with most of reprint season. We really just have the Megatins and then Maximum Gold to go. So around now is typically when we really want to start identifying trends and figuring out what cards we should be looking to pick up. Typically, right after a reprint is when we see the biggest dip in a card's price, and then card prices will start to bounce back up a month or two after when people have had a chance to figure out what they want to do and what cards they want to play. So make sure that you guys stick around with me here and be diligent with me so that we can be on the lookout for those opportunities together. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed today's Market Watch episode, please make sure you hit that thumbs up button for me. Also leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what else is going on with the market that maybe I didn't cover today, so I can potentially cover it in a future episode and keep you guys as informed as possible. And of course, if you haven't already and you want to keep up with the channel, please make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. And yeah, so until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.